This is so fun. Thanks so much to all of you guys for coming. This is really cool. I'm like looking in the crowd and I recognize a bunch of you from the internet, and the internet is just like the coolest thing. Actually, the internet last year brought me to the Shorty Awards, which was subsequently awesome. I was like watching the little video thing, and what I loved was seeing Bill Nye up there. I got to pee directly next to Bill Nye, and he was already peeing when I walked in, and so he finished up a little bit faster than me. I was more hydrated, and he went over to the hand dryers, and he could not get the hand dryers to work. And somebody else kind of like made fun of that to him. They're like, you don't know how to do that? And he then explained to the entire bathroom how the hand dryers work and the technology behind it and why it wasn't working for him. And I was like, this is my childhood come true. So thank you, Shorty Awards, for that opportunity, and thank you guys for being here. I am a professional Snapchatter and Instagrammer and photographer, and all of that feels very, very weird. And so tonight I'm gonna kind of talk through that story of how I became what I call a storyteller through the process of photography and Instagram and Snapchat. So let's do that. I started shooting photos when I was 16. I was given a camera in this photography class, and I don't remember learning a ton in that photography class. Like, I learned all the basics, super cool, but what I loved was that they gave me a camera to use for the entire year. And so I would go home and I would shoot photos every single day. And it was really cool. I had some older mentors kind of started investing in me and started to teach me how to use this camera. And not just how to use the camera, but how to shoot photos that mattered, how to shoot photos that were bigger than this small little town I grew up in, how to use photos to make a difference in people's lives, how to deal with clients, how to use social media. And that led to me getting my first opportunity to shoot professionally at 16. I got this phone call from this fashion designer, and she was like, hey, I've got this new line coming out. It was like a small little line, but she's like, I would love to have you shoot these photos. And I was on the phone and I was like, no, like that sounds awful. And I was just so scared. And like in that moment, I just totally froze because I did not feel ready. In my mind, I was like, does she know I'm 16? Does she know that I suck? Does she know that I've never done this before? And so I actually told her, I was like, I can't do it, find somebody else. And I hung up the phone. And immediately I just was filled with regret. I was just so, I was so regretful of that. And so I kind of sat there for a moment, got up the guts, and I called her back and I said, hi, can I still do that shoot? And honestly, I expected her to say, no, you were right, you do suck, you're not any good. And that would have been totally valid and whatever, but she kind of saw something in the work that I had shared, and she's like, I would love to have you do that. And so that was the moment when I learned that I don't want to say no to things out of fear. And I began to kind of start saying yes to things and not be consumed by these things that I was afraid of. And so fast forward a few years, and I moved to Portland, Oregon to go to college. And Portland is this brand new place for me, the exact opposite of this small little town I grew up in. And I just started saying yes to more and more opportunities. And I got an iPhone and I started playing around on Instagram, and I was just documenting my life in Portland. And I guess that was a pretty fun thing for me to be able to say, like, here's where I was, like, here's like this background on what my life was in this small little town, and here's what my life is now. And that creates a pretty compelling narrative. That's what any story is. It's something like you are somewhere and you end up somewhere else. And so I was in Portland and I was just documenting my life, and people started following along. And it was this really fun journey of, I was this photographer sharing my things, and then people actually cared what I was sharing about. And it was a blast. And so I just kept on doing that, and I began to kind of have preferences on the types of things that I was sharing. I noticed a lot of people were sharing just photos of mountains and waterfalls and coffee. And those are all things that I love, and those are all awesome things to take photos of. But I was like, what if this could be used for something else? And so I started something. It's not like the most novel idea in the world, but I started something called Story Portrait, where I would take the people that I admire in my life or people I wanted to meet. I would shoot a photo of them, and then I would share their story. And I would put a little hashtag at the end that said #StoryPortrait. And it was really cool. My community that I built online started jumping onto this idea. They started doing it as well. And so soon we had 500 people who had done this thing, and then 1,000 people that had done this thing. And the right people started noticing. And some of those people worked at Instagram. And that was like my first big break, whatever that means, where somebody at Instagram saw what I was doing and they're like, this is cool. Like, this guy is doing something unique. And I don't feel like it's the most unique thing in the world, and there's other people who have done it far better than me, but I was super proud of this. And so Instagram decided to do a little write-up on me, and they decided to share these things that I was doing. And that catapulted me up to having tens of thousands of followers, which is crazy. Like, I was blown away. And so I just kept on doing this, and I was focusing on telling stories with everything I did. I would share photos of mountains, but I would share a story with it. I would share photos of waterfalls, but I'd share a story with it. And most of all, I'd share photos of people that I admired. And that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I wasn't actually passionate about photography anymore. For all this time, I thought of myself as Branden Harvey, the photographer. I would introduce myself, oh, I'm a photographer. And that was like a part of my identity. But I got to this point where I was like, I don't know if I'm at all passionate about photography. Like, I still do this every day. It's what makes my money, but I don't know if I'm passionate about this. And so I was rattling with why is this true? Why? I love photography, but I don't care at all about this. And that's when I started to realize that I cared far more about telling stories than about shooting photos. And I was learning that Instagram was just a tool to tell stories, and photography was just a tool to tell stories. And once I figured that out, it just opened up everything. It made me so excited. And so I started going into, around this time, brands started approaching me with opportunities to work together on Instagram and to kind of create content together. And I just started saying yes, because while a lot of my little pocket of Instagram was oh, we don't want to get into the ad stuff, and we don't want to get into this whole sponsor thing, I was like, this is just a cool opportunity to tell a compelling story around somebody's topic, whatever their brand is. I just get to tell a story about it. And I would say no to the stories that weren't compelling. There's brands out there who they just aren't, they aren't doing things that are compelling. They aren't doing things that are interesting. In fact, they're doing things that are negative. They're the villain in their story. And I wanted to just work with brands that I was really, really excited about. And so I started saying yes to those opportunities and telling cool stories. And somewhere along this line of focusing on storytelling, I saw what Casey Neistat was doing on Snapchat. And I don't know about if you guys followed Casey during his heyday of Snapchat, but he was crushing it. He's just a fantastic storyteller. Every single day he would just go out and he would put his phone in the air and he would document his ridiculous, wonderful life here in New York. And I saw what he was doing, and I was like, I want to do that. And years before, I had deleted the Snapchat app. I had totally sworn it off as something for 14-year-olds. But when I saw Casey, who's maybe 10 years older than me, using it, I was like, I'm going to try this out. And so I committed to creating one Snapchat story every single day for a year. And I wanted my stories to always be compelling, not just here's a little thing that I'm doing here, here's a little thing that I'm doing here, here's a little thing that I'm doing here. It was a full-fledged, a narrative around something, telling a story. And I found it to be so creatively inspiring. It was just flexing all of my creative muscles. And I was loving it. And so I got about 6 months into it. And I started working with a few brands. Brands started reaching out to me, not because I had a lot of followers at this point, but just because they liked what I was creating. So I was just creating content for them. I got hired by ABC Family to help create some fun Snapchats for this TV show that was on right after Pretty Little Liars. And it was so funny, like watching this show that was not made for me, and then like making snaps about it every day, and it was so much fun, and I was just really, really enjoying it. And through that, I ended up growing a pretty significant audience once I started doing things like that. An audience bigger than my Instagram audience, and I was like, this is so cool. I just get to be goofy and fun, and I realized that I had been telling my story on Instagram for years, but at the same time I was telling this little curated story of just the best moments of my life and just the most serious moments of my life where I told important stories. And I love those things, but I was like, I'm also a goofy guy. Like, I do really stupid things, and I want to kind of tell that story on Snapchat. And so it was just such a freeing, cool thing to be on this platform, like be on these two platforms that showed these two different sides to me. And to just kind of build this audience that was excited about that as well. And so Snapchat's been really, really fun. And so I'm about 1.5 years into my journey on Snapchat. And I've gotten to work with all kinds of people. And again, my understanding of storytelling and my understanding of like what I'm passionate about has continued to evolve. And so it used to be like, I just wanted to tell stories. And now I'm like, what if I focus on telling stories of good? What if I focus on telling stories of the hope in the world? Because when I look at the news, when I look at the things you see on Facebook and stuff, you scroll through and there's just so much cynicism. People are so negative. But the truth is, when you're like out in the world, when you're like living life, like there's so much hope in the world. There's so many beautiful things. And so I was like, what can I do to just like focus on hope? And so I now like to describe myself, like I feel like my identity is that I'm a person who tells stories filled with hope. Like that's my concept. Like I want to tell stories of good. And so I've started just basically saying yes to those types of opportunities. And so I think this Pope campaign is a really, really good example. The Pope folks, basically there's this like large Catholic nonprofit that's highly associated with the Vatican. Their goal was, they're like, we just want to have a conversation about good winning in the world. Like the hashtag was good is winning. And they're like, we don't want to like throw like Catholicism into it. We're not just going to try to reach religious people. We're just going to have a conversation. And I'm not Catholic, and I'm not, like I've never cared about a Pope before. I think I said that in the video. But like they reached out to me and they're like, Branden, we want to tell stories of like good winning in the world. Are you in? And I was like, let's do it. And so I helped them put together this campaign and put together that street team of all these amazing people. That whole street team that they talked about, those were people that were in my audience. Those were people who also believed that good is winning in the world. And I said, hey, I'm holding a contest, share photos and stories of good winning in the world, and you might have the chance to come and hang out, document the Pope's visit. And so all those people were like people who had just kind of like been following me, and I was just so honored by that like these people that I really admire were kind of in my little community. And so I flew out to the Pope's visit to the US, like I was here in New York. And it was so cool just being there and not being somebody who's Catholic, just like hanging out and like looking for the beautiful things that are happening in the world. And I think this Pope is a really good like example of that. He's just a guy who I think is a bridge builder. He brings people together, and I just got to focus on the cool, beautiful attributes of that. And I just thought that was a perfect campaign. And so I was shooting photos the whole time. I was running around like crazy. I was also Snapchatting the entire experience. And then every day I would share a few Instagram photos of how good is winning in the world. And then they were creating this documentary behind the scenes. And so it was the most ridiculous campaign ever, but it just felt so like true to like what I wanted to be doing. And it's been really, really cool because since then I've also had lots of other opportunities to work with brands that kind of believe the same thing. You know, they want to share these stories of the good in the world. I think that the very first campaign that I ever got really excited about was this time when I got to partner with PetSmart. And I just saw PetSmart as like downstairs, which is crazy. But PetSmart basically booked me a flight to Phoenix, Arizona, where they're headquartered. And I got off the plane, hopped in a cab, and the cab took me to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. And as I got out of that cab, a van was pulling up with puppies and kittens, and they made an announcement over the loudspeakers at this children's hospital. And they said, you can come on down, you can play with the puppies and kittens. And like one by one, all these kids and their brothers and their sisters and their parents came down, and you got to see their faces light up as they saw all these cute animals there to just like play with them. And my only job was to be there and to document this experience, to meet these kids and hear their stories and shoot photos. And it was so beautiful and so special. And I was like, this is the perfect way to work with a brand. This is the perfect way to make a living. Like, I was so honored that that's my job. And you know, PetSmart could have said, hey, Branden, go and post a photo on Instagram that says buy dog food at PetSmart. But like, they didn't ask me to do that. They said, we're gonna do this thing for people who love pets because we love pets. Can you just share it? And like, that was so, so, so cool. And earlier this year, actually just a few months ago, I got to do another really fun campaign that was with Expedia, the travel company. And they basically said, Branden, we want you to give away some tickets to some of your Instagram followers to get them home for the holidays so that they can go and visit their families. And so I just basically asked people like, hey, what's the story? Like, why do you want to go home for the holidays? And then Expedia picked some of those people, and the stories were incredible. They were so beautiful. All the people that poured in, and a ton of my followers ended up getting to go home for the holidays. And it was, I don't know, it was such a cool experience to be like using social media. Like, I get to bring people together here. And so, yeah, it's been just such a fun, beautiful process, and it's been really, really cool experiencing going from just thinking that my life was that I was a photographer to seeing that basically I went from I'm a photographer to I'm a social media guy, and then it was like I'm like a storyteller, and now it's like, okay, I'm a storyteller with a purpose. I've got a goal, and everything I do, I get to I get to say yes or no to these things, not based off of fear, but based off of achieving this goal of spreading hope in the world, spreading good in the world, and talking about the beautiful things that are all around us. And that's where I'm at. That's the process of photography to Instagram to Snapchat. So, thanks, guys. I'd love to talk with you guys and answer some questions if you guys have any questions.
How many platforms are you really active on? Because it looks like you're kind of on it and you're responding in a second on almost all of them.
Yeah.
Even to me. And for the ones where you can schedule posts, do you do that? Because I know people who don't, but it seems like they're always on every platform.
Great question. Yeah. I try to be as real time, really actually doing things as possible. I try not to be on platforms that I don't actually use. So the platforms that I really use are Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and I just started an email newsletter, which is so old school, but so fun. I'm really enjoying it. Every week I send out 5 pieces of hopeful news in the world, and it goes out every Tuesday, and it's really, really fun. But those are the 4 things. And Twitter, I do schedule out some posts. If I find an article I like or something, I'll throw it into Buffer and it'll just post for me later. Instagram, I always I'm sitting there live, typing out the thing in Instagram, hit the post button. Snapchat, I film it all live, and it's ridiculous. And then as far as replying to things, for me right now, social media is my full-time job. So I go into my little studio in Nashville, and I sit down at my desk and I respond to people on Instagram and Twitter. That's part of what I've created my job to be, and I set aside hours to do that. And so I try my best to just engage with as many people as possible, because I really love the community that I've built, and I love meeting people. So it's really fun. Great question. Yeah.
What camera or cameras do you use to capture your content?
Great question. Yes, what kind of cameras I use to capture my content? I shoot a ton of my photos on just like my iPhone. I'd say 75% of my Instagram photos are iPhone only. And then on top of that, I shoot with a 5D Mark II. I think I'm about to buy a Sony A7R II. We're like geeking out over here. I've also got a Canon S120, which is like this little point and shoot that I sometimes do video with, and sometimes I just throw it in my pocket. On my iPhone, I use Moment lenses every once in a while. You guys should check out Moment lenses. They're like these amazing lenses you can add on to your phone, and they're just like so good. They're better than anything else. And that's mostly it. So I like try to keep it pretty slim. Like I brought my real camera to New York, but a lot of times when I travel, I don't. But like real photo shoots when I'm like working with people, like in that thing, you saw me with like my actual big camera. That's the best question ever. That's the question was, how do you balance like being connected all the time and not being connected? So I just got married a month and a half ago, and I've been trying to be really, really intentional. Hey, thanks. I've been trying to be really intentional about that, and Sammie and I have been trying to create a rhythm around that. So I don't use social media, hopefully, before I go into the studio at like 9 o'clock. I do it all day, so like 9 to 5, I'm like totally down with using social. And then when I get home, I try to just like put my phone away, we'll eat dinner. And then she's a writer, and so sometimes the current game plan is like she'll go into like the little office and write at like 7:30 for like an hour or so. She writes in the morning and at night. And then during that time, I'll hop back on social, like reply to things. Sometimes we'll like watch a movie, and I'll like be like doing the dual screen thing. And then I like leave my phone in a different room when we go to bed. And I found that to be really, really valuable. If I were like doing my best, like my goal would be to take a few weeks off every year where I just totally unplug. We did that on our honeymoon, and it like hurt to do. So I'm not perfect at this at all. And then I would love to take one whole day off a week, like a Saturday or a Sunday off, and just do nothing. I really like social media, so that's super hard, but I think it's a really healthy thing. And I think that this next generation, and our generation really, we're gonna have to learn how to do things like that, because otherwise we won't be able to function as like awesome human beings. That's a great question. Do I get measured by sales when I work with brands? I try not to. Like, I just don't think that Instagram or Snapchat are great ways to get people to go and buy something. You know, if you post a photo on Instagram, and then you're like, go buy this thing, you basically have to say, go and click the link on my, so basically somebody would have to click on my profile, click on the link on my profile, open up Safari, wait for the page to load, decide if they want to buy that thing or not, enter all of their information, press the button and buy. Like, that's a huge process compared to basically any other way to sell things. So for the most part, I just partner with brands who want to, like this Pope thing was a really good example where they're like, all we want to do is communicate a message with people, and we have funding to do this. PetSmart is another great example. They weren't trying to measure how many more bags of dog food were bought after Branden did this. It was just like, did PetSmart maybe gain a few Instagram followers? Did people comment really good things underneath it? That's how they're measuring it. And I know that's not what every brand needs. A lot of brands really do need those sales metrics. But those just, I haven't found to be as fun to do. So I just don't say yes to them. Yeah.
Does your family understand all of the stuff that you're doing, or are they kind of just confused?
Yeah. My wife is super on board with it. Like, she's a way better Snapchatter than me, and she's like so fun with social media. We met on Twitter, my wife and I, which is so great. But my parents are like crazy supportive. It's so fun. My parents are both on Snapchat. You guys, I almost want to give you guys my dad's Snapchat name. I can't decide. I'm not going to, because his Snapchats are so good, but if he knew like that like 100 people were following him, he would like do different things and it wouldn't be as funny anymore. But I'll like start to try to save them and like sneak them onto the internet and share them. My parents are both on Snapchat. My grandma is on Snapchat. My in-laws are both on Snapchat. What?
Can you tell us grandma's handle?
Grandma doesn't snap, she just watches. My grandma's a little creeper, and it's the best. She's just creeping on my snaps, and then she'll sometimes text me or like text my mom and be like, "What's Branden doing in New York? Like, hope he's having a great time." Like the sweetest grandma ever. So they're on board. They get it. And sometimes like my parents will even be like, actually, here's what's funny. In my stockings this year from both my in-laws and my parents, it was just filled with Snapchat ideas. Like they're like, here's like a rubber chicken. Like, hope that makes it into a Snapchat story. Like, here's some bubbles. Like, hope that like, it's so goofy. So I've got this whole drawer at my house of like Snapchat props. Yeah, that's a funny question. That's good.
You're shunning YouTube and Facebook?
I've got a Facebook, like a Facebook page, but I don't push it super hard. It's not like my emphasis, just because I like got on it late, honestly. Like it's hard to grow. YouTube, potentially launching a video series in 2016. Haven't decided on that yet, but I've got a game plan maybe in the works. I like it. It's again, like I just kind of jumped on it too late. Like it takes so much work to push through when you're not early on a platform. Snapchat's still early enough that if you jump on, you can have a great time. You can really thrive on it. YouTube has been around for almost a decade. I don't know. Yeah, I just downloaded Peach and I have no idea how it works, but it's really fun. I think Snapchat's like the hot thing to focus on right now. I don't know what else is going on. Periscope's great. I just use Periscope as a part of Twitter, really. Like I use it with my Twitter audience. Anybody else?
We have time for
one more.
question.
Perfect. Boom.
Branden, hi. New York or Philly? Hope City, who wins?
Oh, man. New York for crowd control and not shutting down the city. Philly just like shut down, but Philly was crazy with like millions of people, and I got to go on a roof and there were snipers and it was really, really cool. So I think I choose New York. That's what I was gonna say, New York, obviously.
And then let's give it up for Branden.
Thanks, you guys.
Broadway has the Tonys, Hollywood has the Oscars, and now social media has the Shorties.
Welcome everyone to the 7th annual Shorty Awards.
The Shorties are by far the most prestigious.
We are so proud to be part of the Shorty Awards.
Thank you, Shorty Awards.
Thank you for doing that. That was pretty cool.
I get a call, I gotta be at the Shorty Awards.
I'll speak from the heart.
Wow, that was awesome.
There is not a more passionate fan base out there.
Hi friends, what's up?
Thanks for the Best Singer Award. I really appreciate it.